I'd like to call to order the January 10th, 2022 meeting of the Oakdale Environmental Management Commission. We'll start with a call to a roll call. Or actually, we'll start, with a Pledge of Allegiance. So if we could all stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, now we'll do our roll call. Commissioner Girding.
Present.
Commissioner Brown.
Present.
Commissioner Fink.
Present.
Commissioner Cantola.
Present.
And Commissioner Wilson is absent this evening. And I'm not sure about our city council liaison, but I would like to mention also present is Shannon Reidlinger, our community development specialist that is works with our commission, and also our new community development director, Andy Getzlaff.
Thank you.
All right. First thing we have on our agenda is the approval of our November 15th, 2021 meeting minutes. And I would ask our commission members if there are any changes or to the meeting minutes that are required. Hearing none, I would look for a motion to approve the November 15th, 2021 EMC meeting minutes as written.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor of approving the November 15th, 2021 Oakdale Environmental Management Commission meeting minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting minutes are approved. So our first we'll get to our old business on the Environmental Management Commission agenda. And the first thing there is our EV-ready zoning ordinance amendment updates. And there has been progress on this since our last meeting. This has been reviewed with the Planning Commission, and I think I'll turn it over to you, Ms. Reidlinger, for your comments on this.
Thank you very much. Quick update. So as a reminder, we as a commission had talked about EV ready ordinance update amendments back at the October 15th meeting. I presented some draft language. Everyone's very excited about it.
So exciting.
I presented some draft language to give a sense for what those ordinance amendments could look like, what sort of the topics that we would cover would be. You all provided feedback. I took that same draft language to the Planning Commission and asked them for the same level of feedback as far as detail was concerned. And you can see here in the bullet point list in the memo in your packet that they had a couple of comments to provide to think through the flexibility in the charging station standards and the parking spaces themselves, the degree to which things are a requirement versus a recommendation for business owners. There was some question about how these potential ordinance amendments would dovetail with fire safety standards. So they provided a lot of good feedback, and my goal is to take all that feedback, go back to the Planning Commission at their February meeting with some more concrete language, things that have been updated a little bit more to reflect the conversation thus far around the EV ordinances. That will take into account some best practice research that we could do with peer cities. So that gives them, the Planning Commission, the chance to really look at things that would actually be in our ordinance updates as opposed to sample language. They will provide more commentary on what works and maybe what needs to be redrafted. And then the goal is to bring that back to the Planning Commission at their March meeting, have a public hearing, again, get more feedback, fine tune before we take it to City Council. My desire is to bring that, those edits back to the EMC at some point, just to make sure that our commission is continuing to speak into the process and provide as much feedback as possible. The EMC doesn't have the ability to directly vote on the language itself, but you guys do provide a lot of really good direction, and that's very important. So expect that the edited language will be in front of you at some point in time before it goes to City Council for final review.
Great, thank you for that update. And looks like there were a number of points that they did bring up, and I do appreciate your work in looking at these items as far as best practices of other cities that have already developed EV ordinances. And I think that's the approach we had talked about when we reviewed the ordinances, that working on best practices from other cities, not only in Minnesota and around, but nationally. And so I agree with continuing on that track and to get the best ordinance we can out there. And I think an important thing is that, it be not an ordinance that, I think having that kind of continuity with other cities, especially around the Twin Cities, but also looking at other best practices as well, that we'll come up with something great and that will help promote electric vehicles in our community.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think one thing at the end here, this last point, stood out for me is what, how can we incentivize the use of that in the city, through the city ordinances? And I think whatever we can do to help incentivize that, not only making the ordinance structured so that they're easier to comply with and that, but if we can add some incentive for companies and that too, and other business owners and that to install, and apartment owners especially, for their tenants too, that would be something to consider through an ordinance.
Mm-hmm.
Comments from other commissioners?
Just a couple, yeah. Thank you, Shannon. And then I like seeing the word equitable in this one, equitable distribution, as we talk about where they're actually located in a parking lot. That's a really nice to lean into. I do have a question about how, and this might have been presented, and I apologize, but the degree of flexibility in space design, what do we mean by that?
Yeah.
Again?
So in the sample language, there were some requirements when it comes to where to place the charging station, how far away from the parking spots they should be, like if they are mounted on the wall, how high they should be mounted. And because that was included in the sample language, I think the Planning Commission kind of jumped on that a little bit and said, where are these specifications coming from? There were some minimum EV charging spot requirements recommended in some of the draft language. They had questions around that, who comes up with that number, that sort of thing. So I think that's what they were questioning when it comes to flexibility.
Flexibility, yeah. Thank you. Great.
Any other comments from any other commissioners before we move on? Well, hearing none, I would just say that we appreciate having the chance that after revisions are made and before it goes to the city council, that we are able to take a look at it, review it before it goes to the city council.
Absolutely.
Great. Thank you, Shannon. All right, our next item in our old business is the 2022 Adopt a Drain schedule. And we have a program in Oakdale for adopting stormwater drains. And we have a number of drains on city property, including around Walton Park here, around City Hall. And the Environmental Management Commission has adopted a few drains on site here, and so we are putting together our schedule for 2022. And looks like I kick off the schedule in March. Have that honor, being first up, so thank you. And is there, right now, I guess first off, I would ask the commissioners if there's any issues with the schedule and needing to change anything, or knowing that you may be gone that month or something. No? Okay, that's great. And so I'd also like to take this opportunity to remind residents that you too can adopt a drain in your neighborhood. Perhaps you have a stormwater drain near your home that you would like to adopt, and you can go to the environmental section of the Oakdale website to get information on how you can adopt a drain and become part of the program. It doesn't require a lot of work. It's mainly the seasonal buildups and organic waste that, like leaves in the fall and grass clippings in the summer and other brush that may get stuck in a storm drain before it goes down the drain and into wetlands to remove that debris. And that's what we're doing here at City Hall. So any comments on the program from any of the commissioners or from Ms. Reitlinger?
I was just going to say, I got Commissioner Svink's last name wrong, so I'm going to change that for you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Only other comment I would add is that it's super easy to do. The website's very friendly. And as a bonus to anybody that adopts a drain or drains, you can name them. It's very fun.
All right. Well, that's great. And again, I hope that a lot of residents and even businesses and business parks will step forward and adopt a drain. It's very important. We have a lot of stormwater ponds here in Oakdale. I think there are over 200. And so really important that we keep debris out of those so that we don't fill up those stormwater ponds and cause extra maintenance and costs for the city. All right. Our next item on the agenda is a new business item. And this is our first meeting of 2022, and every year we elect new officers, a chair and a vice chair. And so we're going to go through that election process. The first item is election of a commission chair. And so first off, we will nominate a candidate for the chair position. It does not need to be seconded unless you just want to let other members know you show support for that nomination. You can second it, but it's not required. So I will start by opening up nominations for the chair. And so a motion to nominate a new commission chair.
Motion to nominate Keith Miller for position of chair.
I second by show of support only.
Are there any other nominations for the position of commission chair? Hearing none, I would look for a motion to close the nominations, and this does require a second.
So moved.
Second.
All right, thank you. So since there's only one position nominated, we don't need to have ballots, secret ballots for this. And I would just look for a motion of election of Commissioner Miller to the chair position for the period of 1 year commencing this evening, January 10th.
So moved.
Second.
And you second, thank you. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? All right, I think that was properly elected. Thank you for your support. Next, we have the election of the vice chair. So similarly, I would look for nominations to nominate a commission vice chair.
Motion to nominate Commissioner Fink for the position of vice chair.
Motion to nominate Commissioner Girding for the position of vice chair.
Are there any other nominations at this point? Hearing none, I'd look for a nomination to close the nominations for vice chair.
Motion to close nominations for the position of vice chair.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, motion, we will close nominations for vice chair and would turn to our ballots. And we will vote for either Commissioner Girding or Commissioner Fink for vice chair. Yeah.
You abstaining?
What? I guess okay.
Protesting the vote.
Standing up. We're watching it all unfold.
Where's the competition?
I just wanted to see what happened if we had two. The first time ever.
Co-chair.
Oh, co-vice chair.
Okay.
4 co-vice chairs.
2022.
Cool. Fun.
All right, we have 3 votes for Commissioner Girding and 2 votes for Commissioner Fink.
All right. So look for a motion to elect Commissioner Girding for the position of vice chair for the period of 1 year, commencing this evening, January 10th, 2022.
So moved.
Do I?
Second.
Second. Oh, thank you. All right. All in favor of electing Commissioner Girding to the position of vice chair, say aye.
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 Opposed? Congratulations.
Thank you, everyone.
Will be our vice chair for this year. All right. We made it through the election process.
That was heated.
All right, we have a number of other items on the agenda here, and the first item in this section will be the commission function and duties. This had come up in our November meeting, just what actually are the official commission duties and function. And so we have received a document, a memorandum on this, and I think this will be helpful as we get into our 2022 work plan, which we reviewed at our November meeting, and knowing exactly what function and duties are. And I think I'll turn it over to you, Shannon, to talk us through this.
Yeah, to your point, Chair Miller, we did have a conversation in our last meeting about the work plan and how the EMC commissioners can really engage with that work plan. We had also discussed the 2022 EMC Editorial Calendar, and the same question came up. How do we make sure that you all are engaging as you want to in the editorial calendar as well? So I just went straight to the source material. This is copy-pasted directly from our ordinances to just remind the commission about what the purview of your duties are. A lot of it is to assist as required, but there is some capacity to collect data, to interact with the community, to provide, to gather information that can come back to the commission as you're considering new policies or plans or programs. So there's a lot of agency that you have as commissioners to provide those recommendations based on fact that you might yourself gather, and then move that on towards the city council. So I did try to take what was in the ordinance and then just provide a couple of bulleted examples of ways that might play out in engagement for the commission. So there's, obviously stuff like reviewing the EMC or the EV Ready ordinances. That's a great way to engage. We did talk very briefly about this idea of increasing multifamily dwelling recycling, and that might require some commissioners to go out there and have conversations. That's a way to engage. And maybe something as easy as showing up at a farmer's market and tabling for a specific program like composting. So again, just to give you guys those examples as a reminder as we continue the conversation about our editorial calendar and our work plan moving forward.
Yeah, I think this is very helpful, and it is consistent with what we had talked about, and I'm happy that you did have the items from the 2022 work plan and how they fit in those duties and things that we can do and things we've talked about doing. So it's all consistent with what our plans were for implementing some of this, but it's good to know that we are following the memorandum of duties for the EMC, and that things we've been talking about are very much in line with those duties, or they are in line with those duties. So that's good to see, and also gives us some thought about other things that we can do too, because we've talked about other things, especially getting more involved in projects, and it would fall under some of this collecting background data or assisting in public education in that. And I think that's great that we were right in line with some of this, and maybe we'll get some other ideas by looking at this where we can contribute. I know last time we talked about maybe doing some webinars for education on different subjects, and this would be great for this. And I think working with other environmental organizations as well, and how we have done that in the past with like the clean energy teams, and also with Xcel Energy and their programs. So this is all consistent that we can as an advisory body, work with utilities or other programs that would help advance our environmental agenda here. So I'll open it up for other comments by commissioners.
When is the last time we took a look at the city's tree preservation policy?
Having been a longtime commission member, I would say it probably dates, 10, 15 years ago.
Could I request a review of that for an upcoming meeting?
I can write it down and see.
That'd be excellent, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a great item that we have not touched on in a long time, Commissioner Cantola, and I think that with looking at the need to preserve our urban or suburban
Yeah, I mean,
forest.
as we start to head up that hockey stick of the death curve from Emerald Ash Borer,
Yeah.
it's going to be extra important that we preserve the trees that are possible to preserve. So just seeing what the city's ordinance are on that would be,
Yeah,
I think, a good idea.
yeah,
Especially with the droughts.
Yeah,
That's
for
been
sure.
rough this past year.
Any other items that commissioners want to note here before we move on? All right, well, thank you again for putting this together. I think this is very helpful, and yeah, I think we should keep this document at hand as we develop work plans during the year and our work plan for next year. So the next item on our agenda is a Community Development Department update. And we now have our new Community Development Director, Andrew Gitzlaff, with us this evening. And so this is a great opportunity to get an update on what's happening, as a lot of these items do have impacts affecting the environment. Looking at the various items on this other list that we have, you know, the effect on stormwater runoff, effect on our trees and groundwater, and all of these things have impacts that potentially on the environment. So it's good to know what's going on with that. So I will turn it over. Do I turn over to you, Shannon, or Andrew?
Yeah. And maybe first, I can just go in just a brief introduction on myself and background. I'm really happy to be here and excited to get started. There's a lot going on in the city right now with development projects, but also some planning that we need to, start getting going to prepare for sort of that next wave of projects 4 or 5 years in the future. So we're prepared for those as well. My background, my previous employer was Ramsey County, where I was a senior transportation planner, primarily managing transit projects. So I managed the Purple Line BRT project up to White Bear Lake, and then was Ramsey County's rep on the Gold Line project, which travels through Oakdale. And actually, before Ramsey County, I worked for about 7 years at Washington County. So have a lot of experience working on those larger projects. Earlier in my career, also worked for a couple different cities, Maplewood, Hugo. So just pretty much been on the east side of town for my career. And just, getting started here with my transit background, it's nice because I see a lot of just connections too with a lot of the work we did was about transit and reducing vehicle miles traveled and more efficient fuel sources, and more walkable, livable communities. All those sort of things, which I think transitions well to what the work plan of the environmental management committee is. I don't think I'll be at every meeting because this is really Shannon's your point source and your expert here, but would love to join from time to time. So with that, I do have a listing of sort of what's going on in the city, and in the spirit of connecting dots and things might not have thought about or ideas that you have. Feel free to give me feedback at the end. I will say this is day 8. So I don't really have all the answers to all the questions, but certainly can go back and look at things. So I'll just run. Maybe what I'll do is I'll run through these, and then at the end, Mr. Chair, if you want to open it up for questions.
Sounds great.
Good. So looking back at some of the projects that either were completed or started in 2021. So we do have the home furniture project at the former theater site that is under construction right now and moved from Woodbury up to Oakdale. They did do some things such as reducing the parking ordinance, the amount of parking required for furniture stores, which I think is a good thing to reduce that total pavement amount. It also allows for another pad site to be built, basically out in the parking area. Again, using existing space that we have as opposed to new green space in areas. And that is under construction, keeping our inspectors very busy. The same with the new animal emergency referral center. It is expanding. If you're out there, it is a very big building. This is something that was new to me that I learned about the services that they provide and the scale at which they operate. And construction, again, is underway on that project. With the growing community and also updated guidelines from Minnesota Department of Health, new water towers being built. This is at the current location off Helmo and 12th Street. On the school side, Eagle Point Elementary, the school district has began construction in fall of 2020. The goal is to have basically the new school building built and the old building demolished with that opening this is coming fall for classes. Another update here, a project actually began in 2020 was the bike and pedestrian plan. The other plan is quite dated, and opportunity to inventory what's out there today and plan for future bike and ped connections, which is something you think about. Again, that the notion of getting people out of their cars and quality of life, those improvements and the attractiveness of the community, they all play into that. This one did stall with the COVID-19 pandemic, with the ability to get that one going. So we do want to resume this one in 2022. And as part of that, we would come back to, I know this is in the EMC's work plan, so we would come back, or Shannon would come back and get your input on some of those areas as well. But this will probably take a little bit longer to get that up and going this year. So looking ahead, what's kind of in the pipeline, or what's keeping everyone busy right now? Glenbrook small area plan. This is something that's been talked about for a couple of years now. It's kind of the area the triangle area by where Fleet Farm is and Century Avenue over to the west, and the new Hadley interchange has been put in there. Century has sort of been talked about for a long time, and old municipal golf course is there that's no longer, or I don't know if it's municipal, but an old golf course is there that's no longer in business. So opportunity to kind of look at some of the scattered uses out there to do some more planning, and there's been a lot of interest in doing a wide variety of projects in this area right now, and it would be really good to have a plan in place. So we are looking at getting this going as well in 2022 to at least start the planning framework for that study, and again, that'd be one too to come back and gather input on as well. Forefront Technology, the Slumberland campus. Basically, there's about 50 acres remaining of undeveloped land around the existing buildings. The landowner has amended the PUD to add a retail, a mix of commercial and industrial uses to that site. This could add between 700 and 1,200 jobs when it's done, and this is just directly south of the Willowbrook development as well. So thinking about kind of connecting to that existing neighborhood, those connections out the north end are already there as that project's under development. Switching to the other side here, over at 50th and and Hadley, sorry, is where Priority Courier has been planning to move their headquarters, which is in Vadnais Heights currently, and a pretty substantial investment with 60,000 square foot headquarter building, along with maintenance facility, another 93,000 square feet of warehouse space, distribution center. So this will be a pretty big project. We are expecting this to come in this year, probably on the earlier, even first quarter time frame that this one could be coming forward. Tartan High School renovations and additions. Basically, what's happening here is those two circular classroom towers are getting torn down, and there will be a new addition constructed on the north and east side of the building, and then some parking and circulation improvements. So this is again a pretty massive project. It is in right now for building permits. They want to start some of the initial work in the next couple months, with obviously more of the substantial work starting once school's out in the summer. Oakdale Station and Oakdale Marketplace. This was recently re-guided as mixed use in the comp plan to allow some more flexibility of uses, with the residential market being in such high demand. And this is a pretty prime location. There's some development interest that's out there right now. A couple of things that, what we're working through as far as issues right now with this site is sewer capacity. With it not being planned for residential, the sewer capacity is just not there. So there's a developer interested in doing a residential project, but we've got to figure out the sewer, and if we can support enough units there and it'd be a multifamily project to support that. It's also where somebody may remember the name of the creek that runs through here, but it does have discovered contamination from 3M's older use in there. So, those are two pretty big barriers to making this site work, but there is funding through the 3M settlement that could be tapped into as a resource. So right now we're just trying to understand it, both the developer is, and then from a city side. Actually, Shannon's doing some work with the Minnesota Brownfield just to kind of research what would be needed, what's the timeline, what's available. Ideally, we'd love for the development community to take the lead on any of that cleanup beforehand, but definitely something that either way we need to get taken care of and getting up to speed on as city staff. Willowbrook, I hinted at this one before. It is the first phase the first plat's been approved. Basically the area south of 40th Street and just to the west of Ideal Avenue. So it's a mix of 51 in this first phase, one-level single-family homes by Lennar, 63 townhome units and 280 rental townhomes. And then I believe there's 4 different parks and open space components as part of this. There's actually a pretty substantial landscape plan that's been developed for the whole Willowbrook and its open spaces, and how that will be integrated over time. And they are out there building right now. They're actually working through the winter on a couple of the units, still pouring foundation in negative 10 degrees out there, because the market is just that strong right now. So that'll be pretty busy this next year, and as part of that, 40th Street is going to get realigned by the city through here to, instead of its straight line kind of rural segment, be more of a neighborhood type connecting road, as well as there's a lot of trails that are going to be with public easements over them going through the development, and park space that we'll be working with to get both developed what the ultimate concepts look like for those park space, because they will be city-owned space. So that's something that's going to be another big sort of endeavor by the community development group, along with those other two, the bike and ped study and the Glenbrook. And here's just an example of those carriage townhomes, and on the left, and the lifestyle villas on the right. Those are those single level sort of detached. I think they used to be called detached townhomes for a while, but this makes a lot more sense as a name. And then this is the Continental, which is actually the 280 rental units, but it'll be behind basically a gated part of the community there. Shifting gears, and I won't go on forever on this because I could go on forever on the transit part, but it is a pretty exciting time with the big public investment coming through. I think this year there's going to be some utility work, so you start seeing some things happen. Most of the right-of-way has been acquired, but there's some of that transactional stuff still occurring. The plans are done. The project is basically applying to the federal government for a full funding grant agreement, and as soon as that grant agreement is done, then they can award bids on the project. So I think later this year, like some utility work, but 2023 and 2024 are going to be big construction years for the project. And obviously, with the city having both the stations at Greenway and at Helmo. The Helmo station, this did go through both a transit-oriented development study, and then it went through a PUD amendment, which is basically turned this into a neighborhood in of itself, with a mix of residential, retail, and office space. There is one project. Well, there's actually two. Let me see if I just want to make sure I have them in here. So the first one that's been approved by the city and is going to break ground this year is Cornerstone Village by Bethesda, 70-unit apartment building, a mix of 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms. 50 of those are going to be affordable rents, and 20 would be market rate. And of those, 17 of those units are going to be set aside for adults with intellectual developmental disabilities, and other 4 set asides for adults that are experiencing homelessness, with a commitment on their marketing side to advertise to Oakdale and Washington County residents first in that process. I don't think I had it in here, but I'm just going to go back. One of the things that the yellow parcel, let me see if I can, I can hover right here. There's a development application in now for a 7-story apartment building with a ground floor restaurant and retail as part of it, and that's went to the planning commission last week, and it will go back in February. It was continued, but pretty substantial investment, actually density above what the PUD had laid out, but that's what PUDs are for, this flexibility. So I think the general notion from the other committees is if you're going to have that level of density and amenities across from the transit stations, where you're going to want that. And there are some stormwater components as part of that, a ponding element, and then potentially some shared ponding with the BRT project. So I could see that one coming back, and that's one too where, working with the developer to see if we can maybe even things like electric vehicles and charging infrastructure. We don't have an ordinance yet, but I think the market's there for some of those things, and we may not be able to require things, but can at least ask the questions and work with them to see if there's some opportunities here for those types of demonstration projects. Covered Cornerstone, Greenway Station. This is the one that's basically just to the east of landfall. A little bit more difficult of a site because you got 94 on one side, so kind of halves your potential over here. But there has been some residential developers interested in doing some projects there. And then obviously in this case, the planning work was already done a few years ago. So that really does help when people come in interested in doing something. And that's kind of what's going on out there. I'm sure there's plenty more, but happy to just take any questions or kind of feedback or things to go back and look at.
Well, thank you, Director Getzlaff. I appreciate the update, and a lot happening in the city. And I think that the bike ped plan seems like a really important thing to get completed this coming year, or this year. And because there's so much going on, that to make sure that we're planning ahead to make the Gold Line and make these other areas that are under development accessible by bike or pedestrian traffic rather than having to drive your car. I hope we don't make the same mistakes that Woodbury did in a lot of their development back in the 90s with like Tamarack and that, where you have to drive pretty much to get anywhere around some of these shopping places. And yeah, so I think as more we can encourage that, especially with things like e-bikes as well, because people who may not want a bike, but now suddenly we have e-bikes and things like that. So I think that's a really important project to get completed. And I also see that we have some, the projects with schools being renovated as well, and those are going to be around hopefully a long time. And I hope, I don't know, you said the construction with Tartan may be starting this summer, and sounds like construction may have already started at the Eagle Point, and I'm wondering about just the design, if designs are complete, and if we're looking at energy conservation, energy efficient designs, because there's a lot that can be done there nowadays with such as the cost of solar PV coming down so much that, things like that. And I don't expect on day 8 that you have the answers to things, but I'd like to bring those up.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. And that's something on future updates or information to bring back, is sort of the dig into the environmental features, because I think that's something, whether it's a public sector project, a private, or quasi with the school district, that those are good things that can be promoted within the city. I do know those projects like the high school, if they get state money in, they have to follow the state's basically ordinance for green construction, which is very similar to the USGBC. So I'm sure there's some real goodies that are as part of that with some more time and stuff, we'll be able to unpack and share those with everyone, so we can all be promoting those and using them as demonstrations.
Great. Other comments or questions?
Just one, thank you for running through everything. I feel updated now on all the things. So piggybacking on Commissioner Cantola's comment earlier, specifically with the Priority Courier Center on 50th, and then on the forefront, I mean, there are pockets of old growth and old trees in both of those. So I'm just wondering how you're thinking, holistically about the composition of that land. You may not have the answers on day 8, but it's something that we would want to talk about.
Yeah, and that's, at least for the Priority Courier, there's no application in yet, so the tree preservation ordinance that was referenced, there would need to be complying with that. And on the forefront one, I'd have to go back and look at what's been done with the PUD thus far, so that it gives the developer a lot of flexibility to have different uses on different size lots, and to, in theory, put development in certain areas to preserve other areas. And, some of that is right up against the freeway too. And so probably a lot more flexibility in that area, and not all that's been approved. So definitely things that could come back.
Okay. Thanks.
And I guess piggybacking off of that, I mean, Willowbrook is leveled, so the park space that would be city-based, you're starting from scratch with trees, so diversification would be important. And then our ability, if possible, to review things like that. Rain gardens, because we really are starting from scratch with that entire plot.
Yes, we are. So that is a very, very true statement. So that's something, and that's a public investment.
Yeah.
So figuring out how, what the programming is and how that's going to work, as well as maintenance is always a consideration as well. And a lot of times the easiest thing to maintain is what's already there naturally and native to the region. So those two tend to go hand in hand.
And then fiber is like, so infrastructure based as well as just, we're looking to increase our community, it looks like by quite a little bit of an uptake there. So as far as being able to support that with internet, like basic function things that we need as humans, is that part of the federal funding or?
For the fiber, that's usually privately done for the most part. And when the developers put in the projects, they gotta bring the utilities to the site. I'm not aware. I mean, some places that there are gaps in the system, but I mean, we're pretty connected here, in the metro as far as like the backbone of the system. So not as big of an issue as, let's say, like outstate Minnesota of getting fiber out to those areas.
For sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
like we're very connected for sure. But I think I meant more of like the draw on the system.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, that stuff all gets kind of worked in as part of all the development reviews and utility meetings and things like that. Some of that's more on the engineering side than on the
Okay.
the
But mostly
community development.
privatized?
Yes, all the
Okay.
fiber networks are private.
Okay.
Well, I guess I have one comment, just in getting this review, which was great, that it brings a lot of things, environmental things to mind for me, and I think other commissioners as well. And in the past, we've had a person on the commission that would receive the information from the EDC, and that way to take a look at it and see if there may be anything environmental in it to bring to the commission and discuss. And that was beneficial. And at some point that stopped happening. And I'm wondering in the future if that would be possible for them to add us to their meeting minutes, and so we can take a look at what's going on with the EDC and and see if there are opportunities there to work with them and give them some advice across commissions.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, we can certainly look into those opportunities. I know this is the yearly meeting of all the different commissions together is one good opportunity. I think one thing that's different now is that we're EMC has been the pioneer of being paperless. The other committees are going there, and the packets and all the minutes are posted online for the various committees.
Okay.
So those can be pulled up and looked at any time, but we certainly could, send out reminders too if there's something on there that Shannon sees that it's a value to take a look at.
Yeah, that sounds great. I think, I guess all that is probably just available online, so we can access that and take a look at that. And I think maybe make that just kind of a regular part of our meeting if there's something in the development or something like that we should be talking about, and maybe have someone on the commission take a look at that every month or something, just to see if there's anything they want to bring up at our monthly meeting. I think having something connected there would be helpful, because, just to see if there are any concerns, and they may already be being addressed, and they just didn't include it, but we can at least note that. Because I know that you know, the different commissions are looking at things with a different lens, and I think to look at projects with an environmental lens is important. So this has been helpful to think about that more. It had been helpful for me to think about that more with everything going on in the city, and make sure that things are not overlooked as far as opportunities for the city. And you know, and I you know, pointed out with the public buildings that obviously I think if they're having to go by USGBC standards, that says a lot right from the start. Yeah, and I think that you know, on the commission, we just want to make sure that we're not missing opportunities for the city, because especially with construction, because it's going to be there a long time, and that's one thing we want to make sure we're doing right up front.
I think it's B3 standards is what I was thinking of for the
Oh,
state-funded buildings. But we'll get it corrected for the meeting minutes.
Day 9 we'll get it
Yeah.
corrected.
We'll edit that.
anything else? Any other questions? Well, thank you for that update. That was very informative, and appreciate you being here this evening. Our next item on the agenda is the monthly editorial calendar. And we've been provided with actually the December, January, and February calendar. And today is actually National Cut Your Energy Costs Day. And so I think we're targeting this month as being Energy Efficiency Month, and we are looking at promoting the home energy audits. And I pulled out my information from my last energy audit, realizing it's now 10 years ago. So I think I'm going to schedule another one soon. And I also recently, we just got our Excel bill, and it was significantly higher. And I think I calculated, given that the energy use was fairly similar, but the costs were 40% higher for based on the BTU's use, but the cost per day was like 40% higher. So significantly higher for gas costs. And I think from what I've read, that's maybe at the low end of increases on gas for a lot of people. So I think this is an important one for homeowners, not just from saving energy use, but saving a lot on their energy bill. So we should do what we can to promote that, and well, throughout the year. But I think right now, you know, what we can do is, you know, inform people of the availability of home energy audits. And if you haven't had one in a while, like myself, to get another one to see if can help you further, because I know we've made changes around the house, and hopefully for the better, but there's always opportunities. And also I noted on here too with the outdoor salt use, and it's another issue with salt then getting down storm drains and into wetland areas and that. And I know there are other cities that have done things about salt, and maybe an opportunity for next month to take a look what other cities have been doing to help residents. I know that the city itself has been looking at their efficiency and reducing their salt usage and chemical usage and that over the years. But I think what we can do as far as advising residents on salt usage as well and what other cities have done in that area. And yeah, I forget which city was one of the benchmark cities, but if I can run across that, Shannon, I'll let you know.
Try Edina.
Was it Edina?
Edina was passing quite a few laws and updating state statutes.
Okay, great, thank you. Oh, anything else on the editorial calendar that commissioners would like to bring forward?
I will just mention, it's not in here because it's slightly new news, but we do have the ability to table at a few of the indoor markets that remain for the rest of the year. So I was at the indoor market in December to give away more compost pails, which dovetailed nicely with debuting our video that our commissioners are part of at the end of December. But if there's any interest, we are also invited to the January 22nd, February 19th, and March 19th indoor markets, again, to be able to promote probably primarily the composting program, just because it's easy to give kits out at that time. But if there are any other programs of interest that the commissioners would like to talk about with the public, that's a great way to do that. So I will send out a reminder email, but just wanted to let you guys know that that is an option.
Thank you.
We should consider for March to add the clean the park or adopt a park. Because I think that happens in April. I think it's in the Oakdale update thingy. Just to because I think you can you get the packets or whatever at Discovery Center.
I see, okay.
Yeah, so
Yep.
we can kind of push it and it's right there.
What was the March date again, Shannon?
March 19th.
Thank you.
From 9 to 1, right?
Correct. Unless it snows and it's rescheduled, like December was.
We won't hold you to it.
Great. Yeah, we'll have to think of some things that we may want to be doing at the indoor market. It's certainly a great opportunity to interact with residents and on different issues, and maybe even to, in the future, we could develop some one-pagers on some things as well, like adopt a drain, adopt a wetland. I think there may be already existing one-pagers on that one, and that we could give to people and who may not know about those programs. All right. So now's the point in our meeting where we have commissioner updates. If there are any issues which were not on our agenda that you would like to bring forward, now's the opportunity to do that. No new items tonight? Okay. Well, if there anything that comes up, we can communicate by email, and if you have some further thoughts, or cover them next month. And now we normally have council liaison updates, and I guess one thing, do we have a new council liaison, or is Commissioner Zabel still our liaison at this point?
I believe Commissioner Zabel is still our liaison. I will double check that to make sure, but that's my understanding.
Yeah, it's a 2-year appointment, so.
Oh, okay.
This 2022 as well.
Great. All right. Well, we'll look forward to update perhaps next month from Commissioner Zabel on what's happening, and I think our update this evening by our new community development director was great and very helpful for us, and I think it's important that we have that connection on a regular basis and with the city council as well to know what's on their mind and if there are any expectations of our commission and just knowing what is going on in other parts of the city. So I guess we're at the end of our agenda. Our meeting next month, now it says here February 7th. Is that the correct date for that?
Yes, yeah, because the third Monday of the month is President's Day, and City Hall will be closed.
Okay.
But I think it's February 1st is Monday, so that's why it looks so soon.
Yep,
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
yep. So this is the second Monday of the month.
Wow.
I think.
I
Yeah,
know.
it looks really
It
early.
looks very
Yeah.
early, yes, I know.
Yeah, it did look early. That's why I
Yeah.
thought it was maybe a typo.
Yep.
Okay. So our next meeting is February 7th at 7 p.m. Well, there is a typo there. It's 2022 actually, but we're at the end of our meeting, and if there are no other comments from commissioners, I would look for a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor of adjourning our January 10th, 2022 meeting of the Oakdale Environmental Management Commission, say aye.
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 Opposed? Meeting adjourned. Thank you.